Kyler Murray, #1 pick or second rounder. We're going to discuss where he projects, given all the things we know about his last season at Oklahoma and what we know about what is about to become his new everyday life at the NFL level. Let's start with this. Big picture, everything taken into account, where does Kyler Murray stack up compared to his draft class and a couple of notable names in last year's?
Yeah, I think there's really no comparison with him and his current draft class here. You know, in terms of PFF grade per snap, he's probably like twice as high as the next highest guy. In terms of positively graded throws, he generated a positively graded throw on 40% of his dropbacks this year. That's astronomically high and far higher than anybody else. And in terms of last year's draft class, it's really only his predecessor at Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield, who performed better than he did in any one of these metrics a season ago.
That brings up an important point, because what Lincoln Riley did at Oklahoma is nothing short of incredible. Their offense was basically unstoppable. So the question for Baker, as it is for Kyler Murray, will that translate to the NFL level? Did he do enough things that he's going to be asked to do at the NFL level in college? And so over the past couple of years, that's been something that we have been working really hard on. And this past season, creating something that takes into account what the quarterback will be asked to do at the NFL level, and using the wealth of college data that we have, grading every player on every play, to project that into that new situation. So let's take a situation, perhaps the Arizona Cardinals, for example. I don't know why, I just picked that one randomly out of a hat. Josh Rosen under a ton of pressure last year. What would Kyler Murray look like in that offense?
Yeah, so we saw encouraging results with Baker Mayfield, but clearly Kyler Murray is not going to go to the Cleveland Browns. And so what we have to do is we have to put him in a situation that's going to be similar to the one that he has in the NFL. And it's not going to be, you know, the top 10 least, you know, pressure rate that he had in college football. He might go to some place where it's a bad team and he has, you know, pressure rates over 40% like we saw with Josh Rosen. And what ends up happening is, of course, his grades and his statistics aren't nearly as good in that situation. However, they are still better, you know, than Josh Rosen was projected to be. You know, cluster 4, cluster 5 quarterback. We would have Murray as a cluster 2, maybe even a cluster 1 quarterback in some situations, given that disadvantageous situation. So far in this, you know, process, Murray looks pretty good.
Baker Mayfield looked very good in that projection as well, and I think it's important to say, look, he's very good, but he's not Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was far better at some of the things that we know carry a ton of value, and one of the things that we like to look at is, how does a quarterback perform when he is throwing at or past the sticks? Because that is the most valuable throw in the NFL. First downs, in case you didn't know, are worth something. And so when we look at that, and we look at how accurate a quarterback is, what really matters is whether they can throw catchable passes. So in their final season at Oklahoma, that was a big separator. Baker Mayfield, about 6% to 7% fewer uncatchable throws when throwing at or past the sticks. That is the big separator. Kyler Murray looks a lot like Sam Darnold in that respect, and less like Baker Mayfield in that metric. So I think he's the #1 pick. I don't think he's Baker Mayfield. What do you think?
Yeah, same thing here. Whenever we look at the stable things, like how you know, what's a quarterback's penchant for throwing negatively graded passes, that's really where Baker Mayfield stood out relative to Kyler Murray, and that is the most predictive quarterback statistic, which is negatively graded throws from a clean pocket. Mayfield was terrific, and you know, at this time last year, he wasn't considered the #1 pick. In hindsight, it looks like a slam dunk, but we're trying to get out ahead of this with Murray. He is still, you know, very, very good, but as you said, I don't necessarily think he's in Baker Mayfield's classes at this point.
Yeah, and the height issue is always one to debate. Baker Mayfield, not exactly a giant, but a decent bit taller than our buddy Kyler. That being said, #1 overall. For more, you can check out Steve Palazzolo's mock draft and argue with him forever and always on Twitter at PFF_Steve. Head to ProFootballFocus.com and subscribe to the PFF Forecast.